Seymour, he's a flip-flop. 1 minute he's pushing, getting the vax and make them mandatory. Next minute he wants our votes. They're all after numbers. Everybody's after numbers. And like I say, in a month's time, I give you a bit of a break over winter, I'd start getting together too. It's beautiful. But I think I've said enough because you guys hear from me all the time. As you know, I'm from the Freedom and Rights Coalition, and we've organised marches from October the 2nd. I think we've done 25 here, something like that. I think right across the nation, it's something like 116. Yeah. I think we should go down in the Guinness Book of Records for the most. But we have the privilege and the pleasure of having the leader, the founder, the one who started the Freedom and Rights Coalition, and he made it his own to fill that space. And I know there were other freedom fighters around and they were doing their bit, but I tell you now, when the freedom and rights come along, then the massive crowd started together. And that's a beautiful thing because we need numbers. So I want to welcome up here and ask if you'd say a few words, the founder of the Freedom and Rights Coalition, the leader, Brian Tamaki. So please put your hands together. Ladies before gentlemen.
Beauty before the beast. Hey. I knew the ladies would like that. I had to say, sorry guys, I love you. Hey, I'm Hannah. I'm at the Brian's best half. And yeah, but you know,
we all are. I'm here to spread the gospel.
Repetition is learning. Repetition is me. It grows and it strengthens you and it empowers you. So what you've been doing here is amazing. What I can't understand is how come the people here that have been speaking all this time have not been arrested. You aren't proven to be dangerous enough. So you need to get a little bit more dangerous. Of course I'm going to tease you because I want to provoke you to keep going. Dangerous is a tool in your hand. You know what? A microphone is very dangerous in the wrong hands. My husband was arrested purely because he picked up a microphone and started speaking to people who believe that their freedoms and their rights matter, that their voice matters, that their feet on the ground matter, that you matter. And empowering one another and equipping one another with information is empowering. So 76 days, this man has been watched as the most dangerous because why was he's been arrested 3 times, I think. How many times have you been before judge? 8 judges judging him. And then just because I happen to be married to him
and while this is going on, we got this guy.
I get arrested.
Here we got this guy.
Brian Tarker is a false prophet. He preaches a false gospel. This is the beginning of the day. The beginning of the day.
The beginning of the day. It's about midday, bro.
He's not a man of God. He steals your money in the name of Jesus.
Ain't stolen any of my money.
He steals your money in the name of Jesus.
So does the government.
Just another selfie streamer. All he wants to do is see himself on screen. Oh, that was just funny. I'm gonna put this on YouTube. He's gonna be laughed at.
Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Look at that man, he's a false prophet over there. He steals your money in the name of Jesus.
Careful, everybody. Cops are here. They might start pepper spraying everybody.
Ah, excellent. I haven't been pepper sprayed before. I haven't been pepper sprayed before.
This man is a
Maybe something different.
He steals your money, he preaches a false gospel, a prosperity gospel. And here he is standing up, calling himself a freedom fighter for Jesus. He's not a freedom fighter. That is a thief in the name of Jesus. What? And it's all his
what are you actually doing? All you are here doing is debasing someone else who's trying to speak the fucking gospel, while saying that you know the gospel and they're wrong.
I came down and
you actually haven't said anything other than abuse him. You've actually said nothing, mate. No, but you haven't given any proof. You've just said words. You've just said words, mate.
People's money. No, it's okay. He is the leader of the biggest cult in New Zealand.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
So have you heard of the Freemasons?
Well, yes, they're big too.
Just two.
Yeah, they're big as well. Yeah.
All right.
The Freemasons built this city.
Yeah.
They did. But I'm here to declare that Jesus Christ is Lord.
Yeah, and he says the same thing.
Does he live it? No, he steals people's money.
How does he?
How does he? He preaches a false prosperity gospel. Do you know what that is?
Enlighten me.
A prosperity gospel is, if you give him your money, you'll be blessed by Jesus.
It's actually not what he says at all.
No. No?
No.
Okay. You want to listen to him more? You might listen to his politics and his vaccinations, sir. I'm actually anti-mandate vaccine.
Cool.
I've not come down here to do that. I came down and I actually happened to see a man that has brought disrepute to the name of Jesus. That's why I'm doing this. It's got nothing to do with vaccines.
Okay.
Nothing to do with vaccines. It's purely a religious thing that I've got.
Yeah.
I've come down here to
So you just believe he's only doing it for the money and he doesn't actually live it, is what you're saying.
No. What I believe is Brian Tamaki is preaching a false gospel. A false gospel. That the prosperity gospel is not the gospel of Jesus Christ. Come to Jesus and you'll get rich. He is well known for his prosperity teachings. He is not a man of God. He is a thief. He will steal your money in the name of Jesus Christ. That's what he will do. Jesus Christ is Lord. Jesus Christ is Lord.
I will never be vaccinated.
He died and he paid for my sins. He died and he paid for my sins. He was nailed to the cross. Nailed to the tree. Brian Tamaki.
Did you get any of that, Brian?
Jesus Christ was
Oh yeah,
nailed to the cross.
this is Kiwi Voice. He's another New Zealand streamer. He's got more followers than me. He's more popular on YouTube than me. So yeah, check out his shit. He's probably got better footage than I do too. Sorry? Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely. Man, I love being a dickhead. So much fun. This is the guy he thinks is a false prophet.
Hey, thank you so very much. I didn't hear all the details, but they
I have no idea how much memory I've got left, so we'll get as much of this as we can.
It's time to stand up for all New Zealanders' freedoms and rights. And I decided to put everything on the line. I tried to involve many leaders, pastors, and business people, and people that had concern.
Damn it, not sure if you can hear him.
When it came to public standing like we did, it was a bit tougher than I thought. And nobody on legal board really wanted to take the risk. So I had three other speakers. On the 2nd of October, when I decided to start the Freedom Rights Coalition, and it was a coalition because
I'm actually not sure. Good pointing out though. Sorry?
That's good footage there, mate.
I think so.
Right up at the kid's face.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah, dude, I got no fear, eh? I'm so stoked that the other two got some too. The real show's over here, eh? And yet, of course, all the cops are standing here now, especially after I started yelling at the guy. All the cops moved in closer. Oh, we've got a few cops that don't even have masks on now. That's fucking awesome. They're learning. So they can be taught. See? There's one with no mask. And there's one over there with no mask. Alright, I better try and get some of the speech, I suppose. Shit.
Not causing us to be crushed. Our businesses lost, our jobs lost, and dividing father and mother, children against father and mother, workmates at work, and doing all that mandating to split a country up and to cause such pain and mental misery and to cause our country to be totally damaged for 2 years. This must never happen again. And for that to not happen again, you have to understand something, Christchurch, which I must commend you that you've been good at. You are the hope right now for our country, for some weary freedom fighters, and some that think that it's over. Do not be lulled into the trap in thinking that it's over. It is not over. The beast has just been wounded. So we're going to kill the beast. But a wounded beast will come back if we allow it and the space to come back on us again. It would have learned some things about what we've been doing. It would stop these from happening. It would take away this. It will silence our voices and it will come harder and more stronger than ever. But I believe that we are far more stronger than them. We are better than them. And we are unified from places that you would never have expected. I guarantee you, you would never have come in a square to hear Brian Tamaki speak before this all happened. And I probably wouldn't have come to your rock rubbing frog session. You know, whatever you are. We are from all different persuasions and political beliefs, but I'm telling you right now, we have been joined together as a family, the Freedom Family, and all of those outside the Freedom Family who believe just simply that our freedom and our rights should never, ever, ever be taken from us. I just want to say, and Derek said it very well today, and I believe this very, very strongly, that you are a very shining light to the rest of the country. You've kept your marches up. And you must have had some divine help, Derek, because after the first day I stood on the 2nd of October under 11-4, I think we had about 100 police. We had the riot squads up the back there, and they were already waiting. And there's all sorts of stuff, but if you go on to the Kiwi Voice or Kiwi Speaks, I did a little wee insight to my life and what happened and how it came about. But just to say, there was threats for me to stop me from doing the first public protest. They didn't want it to happen. And they said to me, we don't want an Australia, do we now, Brian? And I said, no, we won't have an Australia as long as I'm leading these protests. And I guarantee you there will be no violence while I'm there. And we have pulled off 116 protests in this country from last October the 2nd to about to March, early March. The only one I didn't have
total leadership direct is the last one in Wellington, because I was taken out early. And what I was told by inside information, that I was too dangerous with a microphone, and what I was doing about saying and kicking government policy and spreading that, it was far too much, because when I stood that day, they said, how many do you predict on the first day that you're going to have? And I said, oh, about 300, maybe 400 in stretch, because this is level 4. And the other 3 speakers that were to speak with me, they phoned us that evening and said, we're pulling out. So I was left there and I was saying to him, well, I'm not pulling out. I've got to stand and start the protest across this country. So I phoned up all my pastors, something you shouldn't do. But I'm the out-of-box person, I'll tell you right now. I saw the need, and I saw what was coming, and I knew that New Zealand was in trouble unless we stood up to the bully face to face. And so I phoned them all and said, guys, my 40 years is on the line. And I'm going to ask you to join me, because we could lose our jobs. And I may be arrested and you could be arrested. And if you don't decide to do that, we still love you and you're still a part of the team. Well, all of them instantly said, we're in. So I wanted to start a nationwide protest in every town and every city on the one day. And I set it up for the 2nd, the 16th, and the 30th, so that it couldn't be stopped and it would be advertised enough, and hopefully you guys would turn out. Well, when we stepped up that day, I got an email from the police commissioner from the office that said, basically, if you go, Mr. Tamaki, we will arrest you. And so I knew I was destined to go to jail sometime. And when I stood that day, I was amazed, because there wasn't 300 or 400 people. And those that left, I understand, I don't hold anything to them. But when I looked out that day, there was something like 3,500. And for level 4 and all the threats, the government said to me they didn't want any protests in New Zealand. Well, I said, I've crashed your party, because there was going to be protests up and down this country for a while. Now, when that happened, I want to say this, and I hope you've got, well, I apparently offend a few people, but I don't intentionally want to offend you. So I want to say this, and I think it's important, because when I stood there that day on the 2nd of October, even though there were protest movements, there had never been the ability to gather the numbers of people who all felt the same. And we birthed that day on the 2nd of October across the country, in just about every major city and every town. We had something that started with the same intention, to stand up for our freedoms and our rights. But when I stood there, we were a minority. And I had cooperated with the wishes of the commissioner to be masked and have distance and everything else. And if you do that, then we'll have a safe thing. And that's what I wanted to do. Now, I had to do that so I could just get on that stage and get the voice of the protest beginning out there. Otherwise, it may never have started as it did. So, when we did that, we thought it was good, and there was no intention of them arresting us. But then a cabinet minister came and zoomed on the line with me with the police, and he said, are you going to go ahead with this, Mr. Tamaki? And I said, absolutely. And he said, well, we're going to ask you one more time that you shouldn't do it because it's not safe, it's level 4. And I said, I understand all of that. I'm going to try and keep your horrible, wicked, evil COVID-19 health response bill. That's the emergency bill that they used to do all the vaccines, all the mandates, and everything else is because of that bill. And so if you break that, then you're done. So what happened there was a threat from them to say, well, if you're going to do it, then we're going to have to do some things about it. We just walked away, went back, and I know from OIA information, of the Information Act, it supplies that, and we've got that with my lawyer. And in there, they had conversation from high up. The Minister of Police was involved in it as well, to the commissioners, down the line, that it was a political arrest. And they said, we've got to arrest this man, he is dangerous. That's what they said. And it was there that we could arrest him. The senior sergeant came back and said, I can't arrest him, I don't have a warrant. He hasn't done anything yet. They said, well, go to his house and go and get all his electronics. and see what's over there. And he said, I can't do that either, because he's done nothing. And so at the end they said, our legal team must find a way where we can make sure to arrest it. So what they found out for protests for a day in the past, only a $300 fine was there for protests. Because protests were a part of the culture of New Zealand and the world. You have a right to protest. So you have to get a $300 fine, you have to smash all the windows and push someone out and beat them up. That was the worst you got. So in a space of many decades of just $300 for a protest, they suddenly changed it to a $20,000 fine and 6 months imprisonment. Then they cut their hands. We can get them now. Could you imagine that they would do all that just to do this? To stop me? What was really good was when I turned up and looked out as being a minority, we might have had about 300 from who was going to support me and keep the rules. So here we are looking silly and all this masked up and, distance. And then I looked out, there's 3,500, and here's all these other people, and they mostly look like you. Excuse the expression, but they were white. Now, I'm half European as well, from Māori gang with European mum, but most of the time of my life, I probably wouldn't have mixed with huge amounts of little white New Zealanders. This is what turned up. So I think they were wondering, is he going to say the right stuff and we'll join him? I'm looking at saying, what? You guys have got no mask on, you're not socially distancing, and you're all giving the middle finger to the police and to the media. So I said, I like these people. I wanted to do what they wanted me to do, and I couldn't do it. So I'm standing here looking, and I take the mask off, and then here are these people who I've never met. We wouldn't have associated in a million years. I don't know I know what they probably thought about me, but I didn't know really how I was thinking about them. And I was just open and thankful that they turned up that day. Now, one of the things that, just quickly, they had just enacted the Terrorist Act in New Zealand. Terrorist Act, probably for us. But I went out there and I said amongst the things that I was saying the right things for them. But I said, the Terrorist Act has been enacted now because of what happened in Auckland and here in Christchurch. And I said, I know that there's a terrorist cell right now in Auckland. And I'm going to expose it today because all of the media was there. TV, all the channels, every media outlet were right here across here as I was speaking. And as I said, the terrorist cell that I know, the terrorists in this country was the New Zealand media. And I pointed to all of this guys. One of them said, Brian. And you guys, all of these people that are there, they just roar about this. And they started to go down there. And I thought, oh my gosh, these guys are starting to sneak out. But they were shielding all the police from their big long cameras they were pointing at me. And all the media, they started shielding me. And I had a moment where I just softened up and I thought, I love these people. I love these guys. I absolutely love them. I went to stop and I said, well, they're protecting me. For 15 to 20 years, I've been trying to tell the public of New Zealand that the New Zealand media are liars. They lie to us. And the narratives, and if they're not lying, then they're giving misinformation and wrong information and misleading information. And they did that to me for a long time, for my wife and I, for people who gave our lives to help many others for 40 years. And all of the rubbish that you hear about us, they did that because they hated the fact that I was bringing a message of my beliefs they didn't like. I didn't like their beliefs, but I didn't go around spreading lies about them. So it wasn't equal playing field. But in saying that, I suddenly found a new family. And it's you guys. And Hannah and I since have fell in love right across the country with a whole lot of people we call the Freedom Family, or those who just know when someone's trying to screw us. Now, I hope and pray, and it was right what you said, there are at least 1 million Kiwis out of the 5 million, team of 5 million's gone. There's 1 million people at least, they say, who now have set up the 2 jabs we are not taking the booster. So, really in essence, those people probably won't say it, but I'll say it for them. That million people just joined us. When you think about it, they've rejected the vaccine, the booster. They've just joined us. And I say to that 1 million Kiwis right now, you are welcome to our number. Welcome to our number. Because they have had their eyes open to a government that's been lying to us, cheating us, and leading us down the garden path. And for that to happen, this can never happen again, I believe one of the greatest upsets in New Zealand political history, one of the greatest upsets in New Zealand political history is going to happen in 2023. 2023 is going to be a year that's going to be an upset. Because as it was alluded to, the people of New Zealand must see that when you have almost the protesters there, well to the last protest, at one point there were 1 in 3 Kiwis who actually agreed. It just came to an agreement. 1 in 3 New Zealanders of the 5 million said that they actually agreed with the protesters in the first week and a half that those mandates must go. So it doesn't matter what the thing was. Finally, we're not just Fruit Loops and people who are out in space somewhere, or just a whole lot of, licorice, all sorts. For once, mainstream New Zealanders who classified themselves as being right and proper and prim suddenly realised that us, ragtag bunch, they say, but I don't classify myself, I don't think you are either. I think we're quite discerning. I think we were onto it. We saw what was coming. And they agreed with it, but understand that that's a big portion of the population, and not one single 120 House of Representatives. We voted them in there to represent you and me. Not one of them came out in those 20, 30 odd days of that protest was the death knell for the undemocratic, underhand government or politics that we have up in Wellington right now. That was clear to everybody in this country. They are supposed to serve us. We don't serve them. We put them in there for us not to listen to what they want to do. They're supposed to listen to the people. They do none of that. And if anyone in those parties, or Labour, or the opposition, who are totally useless by the way, wanted to come out, they couldn't because they have to toe the party line. So party politics, which how our present political institution runs, is not for the people, because party politics doesn't represent the people. They represent politicians' desires and their ideology and what they want to do. So they put a gag order out across Mallard duck dinners, across parties, a gag, and the parties did too, the leaders. So Luxton, also Seymour, not Seymour, what is his name? David Seymour. David Seymour. Oops! Māori Party, Greens, they all stood there in that time and watched the government take to pieces our freedoms, our rights, crash our businesses, remove our jobs, divide our country, causing more suicides, mental health, and it's going to be ongoing for years. Could you imagine that not one single opposition party or leader or even those politicians had a heart to think about the people? If one of them had walked out there, they would be a hero today. They could have started a whole new party, we would have joined him or her. But it shows you not one show. Nobody in this country can vote ever again for what's there now. No more career politicians. No more self-serving politicians.
Been saying that for a long time. Fuck the career politicians.
Who are yet to be discovered amongst the freedom movements and amongst ordinary people that have been working in their jobs and their businesses for over 30 to 40 years. That's who I want representing me if I'm in the industry, IT industry. If I'm in the farming industry, I want an experienced farmer to represent me. Not a preschool teacher who gets a portfolio and says, what's this? Or the Minister of Police, Poto Williams, there was a childcare centre that gets the police portfolio and she says, ah! That's why, because the type of politics allows people who haven't got a clue to come through the sticking list. You put your name on a list, and a whole lot of people put their name on the list because they want to be somebody. And suddenly they appear at the party and get a portfolio, like the education one. That's right. And they haven't got a clue. And they're running our future. They're setting up our country where my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren have to live under the decisions of incompetent people in governments and people who want to control us rather than free us to be our potential and to live the life that we should be living. I don't want to leave a New Zealand to my children and grandchildren that's stuffed. And to stop that, I'm going to tell you, we've got 17 months. We're going to tell all our friends and all the freedom groups and outside the freedom groups and any good warm-blooded Kiwi that our country, lest we forget. And I had 7 relatives that died on the battlefields of Gallipoli and overseas and buried there, and they died for God, for country, for king and for country. They died for our freedoms. And now here we are, all these hundreds of years later, still fighting for the freedoms that they thought that they fought for, died for, and got buried in a strange country for. But we've allowed these despots to be in this government to be able to do this. It started in Parliament. And that's where we're going to finish it in Parliament. Don't you go down any rabbit holes. Never mind about the rabbit hole over here, this rabbit hole over here. We are not going to beat them by some stupid theories that I'm hearing some of these people. I'm correcting them and saying, no, that's where it started in Parliament. Think about it. They ruined our lives because the wrong people got in there. And so we've got to go back in there to 2023 and we've got to fight with our vote. We've got to unify the parties that believe that those politicians and career politicians and parties must be cleaned up. We've then got to get together, be unified under an umbrella. There is no, you should not have any divided parties or single parties doing it alone. We must come together as the freedom movement and for every other Kiwi who wants a better New Zealand. A New Zealand that we want, not a communist country she's given us. So, when we started something with the Freedom and Rights Coalition, we're politically agnostic. In other words, it's neutral, but it's not. So we're coming together and hopefully we're going to join with the Voices of Freedom, the 2 major groups who joined the protest and gave voice for the people about what was happening. It was our voice that engaged the narrative, that engaged the mainstream population of New Zealand to talk about the mandates and to talk about and to highlight the control. We did it. You were responsible for actually putting your hand up, standing up, and your voices were heard. So the way that they got in there to create a communist country and to damage our lives and to damage our future, then we must do it back. We must set up.
I think I was actually there the day that you met him. I think I was actually there the day that you met him.
A country that's free, a country that has the ability for people to live and be who
Wasn't that when he said have a yarn with yarn?
The potential of their lives to be able to do that to its fullest and not be controlled or restricted. I don't need to get anybody's permission to be me. I don't need to ask you to be me. Neither do you need to ask anybody. You be the very best you that you are. And they are trying to take that away from you. So I say, hold your vote. It's powerful. Join your vote with tens and hundreds of thousands of others in the next 16 months because it sits dormant otherwise in your back pocket until that day. And so it's not working for you, but if you get your vote and release it, it's still yours. You vote for who you want,
I'll remember your name
but
this
you're
time.
just putting your vote.
Maybe if you,
thousands
if
of
I could
others.
see your eyes, I would have remembered.
What it does is that we start putting some good old-fashioned accountable.
Try not to get you on camera, man. Try not to get you on camera.
Are you live streaming?
Yeah, nah, just recording.
Right up from the election day. What do you think about education? And ask the main people. And then we get it recorded, put it up online. Instead of the 3 strikes that used to have, they had 3 strikes and you're out. I say 3 lies and they're out. And don't worry, politicians will be out there week, they lie so much. That's one way we can clean the thing up. But if enough of us stick together, you can't go away and say, oh, that was okay, but I'm not going to be. That's it, it's over. So what we don't endorse cannot live. And so I believe that this is a good start to put our votes together. So text support 5477. That's the Freedom and Rights Coalition, and it means that your vote now joins thousands of others, and we're able to advocate and start to bring some fear back on these people. You'd imagine if we are able to accumulate 100,000 votes. You still got it, but just the period you put it together. You've just reached and said, no, I put my vote with everybody else because, one, it's time for our Bill of Rights to be enshrined in supreme law. Supreme law statements and take away the sovereignty that the politicians self-anointed themselves with. They didn't want the Bill of Rights to override their ability to do what they wanted to do. Yeah, I know. This fellow here's got it, he's their boss. And we are their boss. We pay them. The biggest unemployment sector in society is the opposition parties. We pay them, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're not even in government, and they sit them there, and we know that they don't do much, but dear God, to let us go through the trashing and the damage that we did, and Luxton said nothing, Seymour said nothing, the Māori Party said nothing, the Greens said nothing, and like Derek said, they all agreed with them. It's only 5 million people, it's a small country. Just think I want to be the poster child of the United Nations. The globalists have an agenda. We got a plan. She's going to be a poster child to change a Western civilization into a communist country. I reckon it's going to flip it, and we're going to get it back and do the very opposite of lead a worldwide global.
Oh, yeah.
And mess up all the globalists, and mess up all of those people who are trying to pull us stunts on us about digital money and digitalising our identity and trying to build one order and all that rubbish. Why don't we just push against them, one of the smallest countries and democracies and so called in this world, and turn this around 5 million and push it right back up their nose the other way and get it back so hard and we go so hard that this is a free country, a country where we can all begin to trust our future with our children and our grandchildren. We can do it. Anyway, I said too much, and I'm getting hungry. Thank you so very much. We love you guys. Thank you for supporting us. God bless you. I'll hand it back to the man himself.